Hello, and welcome to the Dr. Toomer Talk Show. I'm Dr. Catherine Toomer, family medicine, community health physician, and metabolic and weight management specialist. If anything that we listen to tonight you enjoy and you feel like it's very helpful, please share the video. Please like and follow me on or subscribe to my YouTube channel. I have a goal. I'll hopefully reach there by the end of the year. But I once a month, I usually it's the first Tuesday of every month because I'm here every Tuesday live at 6 o'clock. And so usually the first Tuesday of every month, I do a Q&A. However, I had something on my mind last week, so I did something else. But so today is our monthly Q&A. And what I do is I invite people to come in, ask their questions, and then I answer them. As a family physician for almost 30 years, there's not much that's off the table. If I don't know, I'll say I don't know. But I will answer the best that I can. And if not, I will look it up and find it later. So if you're here, say hello. Hello, Marcy. How are you? And welcome. Greetings from Barbados. And if you please let me know if you're listening, give me your name, tell me where you're listening from, and so I can give you a shout out and say hello. Thank you. So I do often I get questions, many questions, on in emails because I always invite everyone. You can write to me and send me questions in emails, and I will respond. Or what I'll do is I'll save those questions for the monthly Q&A, and then I'll use them here. So I have questions that I've been gathering. I have some that I've received online, on Facebook, on TikTok, and then also on emails. So if there are no questions coming up now, I will go to those. Hello from Detroit. Hey, my home state, Michigan. Um, Thank you for joining. So if you have any questions, you can write them in the chat. Um, if you don't want them to be public, you can write to me later at help@drtumor.com, and I will just either answer them then or do a video on the question or save it until the next Q&A. Um, oh, hello from Bermuda. Hello, Quinnell. How are you? Wow, I'm getting a lot of people coming in from all over. Wonderful. Um, okay, so I do have a question here, and so I don't have to go to those yet. Hello, Dr. Toomer. Hello, Lauren. How are you? Thank you for joining. Any updated data on the link between GLP-1s and vision health? So there is the data. So a lot of the data with GLP-1s when it comes to vision, unfortunately, are also data that goes along with diabetes. Vision problems and diabetes go hand in hand. And so when you improve someone's blood sugar, it's going to change their vision because our eye size, our eye fluid is affected by blood sugar. And so that in and of itself will cause vision changes. Now, nothing dangerous. Usually high blood sugars do cause dangerous things to happen to your eye. You get um, uh, retinopathies, diabetic retinopathies, which basically causes problems with your ability to see. Now, when it comes to GLP-1s, they will help with that. And so it does help. It will change because your eyes get used to seeing one way. And then when your blood sugars get corrected, it will change your vision. The one that I think most people are asking about, and this may be what you're asking about, Lauren, is the sudden vision loss from that have been associated with GLP-1s. It is basically what it is. It is most vision loss is caused by arterial issues. This is a non-arterial loss of vision. Now, it is so rare that in the 15 years that I have been prescribing GLP-1s, I've never once seen it. The other is it's even rare. Blindness is pretty rare even with diabetes. You've got to be out of control diabetic for a long time to have some blindness. But so that thing, it happens. It is very sudden. It usually happens in one eye. And it is, as of now, it's not reversible. Again, there's so few cases of it, though. We haven't really had a chance to study it much because, again, it's not happened in anybody that is not a diabetic taking a GLP-1. So we don't know if it's related to the medicine or if it's related to the diabetes. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it does improve blood sugars around the eye. The best way to preserve eye health is through nutrition and through essentially protecting eyes from UV rays, so wearing sunglasses in the sun, and eating high vitamin A foods, but also keeping your blood sugars and your um, metabolic status in check. And of course, prevention is always better than reversal. Because once there is some diabetic retinopathy, it is very difficult to reverse. In fact, it usually does not reverse. So I don't know. Does that answer your question, Lauren? Or was there something more specific you wanted to know? If it, you can just put it there and I'll. But if there's something more than that, I would have to, look it up because that's pretty much all I know at this point. That answer's good. Okay. Any other questions? So again, put your questions in the chat. I can see questions on Facebook and I can see questions from YouTube. Unfortunately, for some reason, the LinkedIn questions don't come through. So I am going to pull it up on my phone just so I can see real quick. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I kind of got little funky glasses, my readers. Thank you. Hello from France. Oh, wow. So I got Barbados, France, Michigan, and Bermuda. I've got an international audience today. That's wonderful. So again, if you're wherever you're listening from, share it with your friends and family. If you find that my information is helpful, I do appreciate it. And then have them subscribe to my YouTube channel because it is growing, and I hope to be able to grow it some more. All right. So let me see. Let me see. I'm just going to look on LinkedIn real quick to see if there's any questions there. Okay. So someone says they have a question about metabolic health. What is the question about metabolic health? Metabolic health is, I can tell you what it is and how to protect it and what it does when we don't protect it. So what metabolic health is essentially our metabolic health and our metabolism are tied together, but they're not exactly the same thing. So our metabolic health means it's how we take food and we make energy from it. Our metabolism is how much of that energy we actually make from the food we eat. So I don't know if that makes sense. So what you eat, we pull it in our cells take it and it sends it through a bunch of chemical reactions and then spits out energy. Our body's ability to use that energy is our metabolism. Our body's ability to make that energy is our metabolic health. But it's basically being able to use the food that we eat for our metabolic health. So what happens, the reason why like diabetes, for example, is a metabolic disease, is because our body doesn't metabolize glucose or blood carbohydrates that get broken down to glucose. And our body then can't use that glucose very well to make energy. And so what happens is the glucose or the blood sugar ends up sticking around in our blood and it causes a whole lot of problems like the retinopathy I talked about earlier. One of the reasons that happens, there's a couple of reasons, but the primary reason, the most common reason is insulin resistance. Now, there are many reasons why you can have insulin resistance. However, you have chronic stress can cause insulin resistance. Polycystic ovary syndrome can cause insulin resistance. Menopause can cause insulin resistance. Pregnancy causes insulin resistance. Steroid use causes insulin resistance. And so any of those things can cause insulin resistance. And when our body can't use insulin, then the glucose that gets broken down from carbohydrates can't get used by the cells to make energy. And so what happens is it gets stored instead. And it gets stored as fat, and it gets stored as fat mostly around our middle, but really just about anywhere. The problem is it also gets stored as fat around our organs, and that's what causes us the problem. It gets stored around in blood vessels, and in around our organs, and they all become less efficient. If it's our heart, you end up with heart disease. If it's your brain, you have dementia. If it's your kidneys, kidney disease, and so on and so on. The other thing that happens if our body can't absorb and break down sugar very well is it stays in our gut. Bacteria is in our gut. Bacteria is what our body uses to regulate a lot of different things in our body, but it gets thrown off by blood sugar. And so, or thrown off by sugar in our gut before it even goes in the blood. And so that also throws off another organ of our body that is used to help regulate everything that our body does. And so that's why metabolic health is so important. And that's why I harp on it so much, because the reason we gain weight is because of our metabolic status. And that's why I talk about metabolic correction, because that's how I help people lose weight, by getting their metabolic status under control. And that's why GLP-1s work so well, because they're metabolic correctors. How likely is thyroid cancer in GLP-1s? Never been seen in humans. The thyroid cancer seen with GLP-1s was only seen in rats. And thyroid cancer is a very slow growing cancer and is rarely fatal. It's one of those things where it grows slowly, it's found, it's removed, and then thyroid hormone is just replaced. It's a very, I would say, of all the cancers, nobody ever wants cancer, but of all the cancers, it's usually has one of the highest survival rates of cancers. But it's never been seen in a human from GLP-1. We do say, if you have a family history or a personal history of a certain type of thyroid cancer. Now, there's many types, but there's only one type. The MEN is the one that the pharmaceutical companies say that we should be careful about. It still does not cause it in humans. Has never been seen to cause it in humans. But I can tell you this. The incidences of thyroid cancer using a GLP-1 is very, 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 very low. The instances of having a lot of problems with high blood sugars or insulin resistance is very, very, very high. So whatever the medications do, they protect you a lot more. The benefit is way outweighs the risk. And that has always been the case since 2005 when the medications first came out. They've been out for 20 years and they have done a lot of good. The reason we're starting to see a lot more about it now is because when Ozempic came on the market, well, first it was a combination of Saxenda being indicated for weight management at the same time that Ozempic came out. And people knew that they could use Ozempic also like Saxenda to manage their weight. And so it exploded. And so a lot of the inappropriate use of the medication, just like it hit diet culture essentially, and it was being used inappropriately. It was being used by people and prescribed by people who really didn't know the medication very well. And so there were just a lot of complications. Also, a lot of the complications we saw were from diabetes, which it also treats. So you couldn't tell, the medication, yes, the person had complications on the medication, but they're the same complications we saw in diabetes even before we had those medications. So the other thing that happened is that it got sensationalized. Journalists, newspapers suddenly went away and everything went online. Journalists suddenly got paid by clicks. And so the more sensational the headlines, the more money they got paid. And so weight loss, sensationalism, death, put them all together and you have, a lot of attention. And that's essentially what happened. And then you throw in people's bias and prejudice and it all explodes. So, from North Carolina. Oh, hello from North Carolina, Olivia. How are you? Shibam says, you have something called visual snow. I don't know what's wrong with me. When you say visual snow, is that like when you see like little sparkles and you see little things, right? Because there's always floaters. Like you can get little floaters and you can get dark floaters and you can get light floaters. And so I'm not quite familiar with visual snow, but I have a pretty good idea of what it would look like and what may cause it. But that is definitely something an ophthalmologist would have to address. Hello from Dallas, Texas. Hi, Perry. Okay. So yeah, so that's an ophthalmology thing. Now I can describe what it probably looks like, but as far as trying to it's the floaters and sparkles, yeah. That has to do with the retina. The retina is a very sensitive, well, obviously it's sensitive because that's where light hits and then gives us our vision. But that is definitely something an ophthalmologist would have to address. And I'm sure that you've seen one. I'm hoping. But that is far from my area of expertise. Okay, so any more questions? If not from the here, I'll go looking. Hold on. Okay. Oh, where'd you go? Okay. Oh, that's an interesting question. How does high blood pressure cause heart attacks? Okay. So I'm going to talk a general about high blood pressure and all the things that it can do, and then I'll talk about specifically how it affects the heart. So essentially what high blood pressure is, it is so our blood in our body and our heart contraction causes blood to push against our blood vessel walls. And the pressure it exerts on the walls is considered our blood pressure. So that's how we check it by putting a cuff around the arm and we blow it up. And then the pressure of how quickly it pushes against the walls is what's being measured and how much pressure it takes before that's noted. Normal blood pressure we want to see as 135 over 85, around there or less. Not too low, because low blood pressure can cause problems just as much as high blood pressure. But when you have high blood pressure, that means the pressure being pushed against the walls of the blood vessels is getting higher and higher and higher. It can get to a point where it gets so high that it bursts. If it's your large vessel, your aorta that comes off the heart that bursts, it can kill you almost instantly. It's called an aortic dissection. If it bursts in your brain, it causes a brain bleed. That's a stroke. It can cause problems. If it happens in your kidneys, it damages your kidneys. If it happens in your intestines, your intestines lose blood supply and can die, and it's a surgical emergency. So that's why blood pressure is considered the silent killer. You can have it, not feel it, and then all of a sudden it causes you a problem. The reason it has such a problem is that when it's a bigger vessel, it takes a lot of pressure to cause damage. But when it's the little vessels in our eyes, the little vessels in our brain, in our fingers and toes, our kidneys and heart, all those vessels are small. It doesn't take a lot of high blood pressure to damage them. And when they're damaged, it damages the organ that they're supplying that blood to. So when you think about high blood pressure, think about pressure washing. Okay. If you take a pressure washer and you spray it against the side of a house or spray it against concrete, it will strip the dirt off of the concrete. It will strip anything off the side of a house. It will strip anything that it hits. Well, the same thing happens inside our blood vessels. When the pressure's high and it's hitting inside that blood vessels, it's shearing off the inside of the vessel and it's making it weak, and that's why it can burst. So that's why keeping pressures down to a level that your blood vessels can withstand is very, very important, because if it goes too high, it shears off the inside, they burst, but vessels will try to shut down to protect themselves and can't, which only makes the problem worse. And then when it's on your heart, though, so what a heart attack is, the official name for a heart attack is myocardial infarction. Myo is muscle, cardio, heart, infarction means loss of blood supply, or basically, it's just loss of oxygen and blood supply. So when you have a myocardial infarction, what that means is that blood is not getting to areas of the heart. And so what high blood pressure does, it can do one of two things. It can make the heart too big for the blood vessels that it got because it keeps pushing pressure against the heart and then that muscle stretches. Or it can make the heart muscle too thick because the heart is working too hard and so it gets thicker and thicker and it takes more and more blood to supply it and you may not have the vessels for it. Or what it can do is that they burst and then the blood vessel supplying that area is not getting the heart. So the muscle of the heart then dies. And that is essentially a myocardial infarction. That is a heart attack. The other thing, though, that high blood pressure does, when it shears the inside of your blood vessels, it also makes them very rough. Blood sugar can also do this. So when your cholesterol is high, it sticks to there. It sticks to the inside of those vessels. And when it sticks too much and then it blocks off that vessel, then that means blood's not getting to that area. And again, it causes an infarction or causes. And so that's how high blood pressure over time can lead to a lot of different problems. And that's why it's so important to know what your blood pressure is. Not it's okay or it's normal. You have to know the actual number. Keep track of the actual number and know what they mean because it's really important to stay on top of that. And that is also important. Hi, Patsy from Lawrenceville, Georgia. So the other thing, and since we're talking about knowing numbers, I'm just going to hit on a couple other things. Know your blood pressure numbers. Very important. The actual number, not whether it's good or bad or high or low, the actual number. Even if it means taking a booklet with you to your doctor's appointments and writing down the numbers that are there. Your pulse, your blood pressure, but also your blood sugar. You should know what your blood sugars are. You should at least, and depending on how old you are, if you have a family history of diabetes, you should know what your A1C is. What that is, it tells you if you're diabetic or how close you are to being diabetic. So it gives an idea of what your metabolic status is. And all of these numbers help you stay healthy and help you stay safe because they can all be reversed into a healthy level if they start going out of range. But once they go beyond a certain point, it's really hard to pull back. So blood pressure, blood sugar, and then, of course, the blood tests we also do, we check liver function and we also check kidney function as well. And so those are all screening things that we should do once a year. Since we're talking about screening, I'll look at the other thing. Since we're talking about screening, mammograms if you're over 40, colonoscopies if you're over 45. Unless you have a family history, you should try to advocate to get it done earlier. Gaming Wonders 44. Why did I get doctors all of a sudden? Not sure what that question means. If you can explain a little better, I'm not sure. Why did I get doctors all of a sudden? Does it mean that you're having issues or health issues and therefore need doctors? Or I'm not sure what that question is for. So you can just clarify and I'll answer. Okay, let's see. Okay, so the someone must be going through my a link my post because I'm getting questions on stress, which is the very next thing on the question list. Stress, what stress does, stress raises your cortisol, which is a hormone. It's our fight or flight, one of our fight or flight hormones. And so when you're under stress, it goes up. It's supposed to go up in short bursts to help protect yourself. Like when you're being attacked or you need extra blood supply to muscles and all this sort of thing, or your heart rate can go up and it's protective. When it stays high because of chronic stress, it starts causing damage. And one of the things it does is it causes insulin resistance. It makes your blood sugar go up. It makes your body unable to use that blood sugar very well. It makes your insulin levels go up. It also makes your cells unable to use that insulin very well. And so what happens is you've got all this blood sugar, their body can't do anything with it, and so it starts putting it into fat cells. But the problem is it puts it into fat cells right around the middle and right around all your organs. The most dangerous place to have fat laid down in your body. And that's why when we talk about weight loss and weight management, it's not because of looks, even though society has kind of made us that way. And it's not because we care about, adipose or fat cells in and of themselves. It's just that they cause health problems. Weight gain, particularly in certain parts of your body, can cause serious health problems over time. And that's why it's so important to pay attention to your weight or weight gain, especially if it's through the middle, because what that means is that your body's trying to push you towards diabetes. And so when you're under a lot of stress, your cortisol levels stay high, it's important to do something about it. The most immediate thing you can do when you have high stress is to try to get your cortisol levels down. And the best way to do that is with box breathing. That's the quickest, easiest way to learn how to get it down. And what box breathing is simply 4 of 4. You breathe in for 4, you hold for 4, you let your breath out for 4, and you hold for 4. And you just keep doing that until your stress levels go down. If you can do that in a quiet place, even better. If you can do it in a place that's quiet and calm, even better. If you can listen to the sound of rain or the sound of music or the sound of, there's like Tibetan flute music is one. If you can do that, it can actually bring your cortisol levels down very quickly. The more often you do it, the better you get at it, the quicker you respond, your body responds. And so that's one. So that's the most immediate way. The intermediate way then is to learn how to cope with the stressors that are coming at you. And usually the way people do that is through therapy, through sometimes it takes medication, particularly if there's a lot of anxiety or depression involved. And then the third, of course, is just removing the stressor altogether. Now, that's not always possible. Particularly as we know as mothers, if you have small children, there are things, there's just, it's harder if you have a job, it takes a little longer to fix that. But that's how you work on cortisol and our stress levels. Lauren says frequency of mammograms, annually, biannually, triannually. Okay, so they keep changing the criteria. Now, I'm going to get on my soapbox just a little bit because it used to be we got them every single year. Part of the reason why we started moving them out farther and farther had more to do with cost, and an insurance company dictates rather than what is best for people. So really what it comes down to is mammograms, if they're normal after you have 2 mammograms, now this is more my husband's area of expertise, but if you have normal mammograms, after a certain number of normal mammograms, you can spread them out. And you can spread them out and have them less frequently. I think once every 3 years is the farthest apart you should have them. Now, but in between that though, you should be doing self-breast exams monthly at the same time every single month. So therefore, if you feel a change in your breast, you can have it addressed immediately. You should also have what's called a clinical breast exam once a year. That is with your doctor. You have a physician who is trained to do breast exam, family medicine, internal medicine, OBGYNs, who can do breast exams once a year so that if they find anything, they can also address it. The reason that's so important is because the earlier you catch anything, the higher the survival rate. Stage 1 breast cancer, which means it's just localized, small, in your breast, nowhere else, no lymph nodes, no nothing. If you catch breast cancer at that early of a stage, it is, I think there's like a 95% survival rate. It's high. And it drops with each stage. So it's always important to catch things early. And so really, family history will dictate how frequently you get them. Your breast history will dictate. If you're someone who has a history of lumpectomies, or even if they're benign, history of, cystic breasts, and you cannot really tell if something is a lump or not, then, obviously getting them more frequently, once a year, um, is helpful. Just wondering how I can break my addiction to sugar. If you are addicted to sugar, you probably have a problem metabolizing sugar. And that sounds really weird, but that is the truth. When you are addicted to sugar, it is because your brain, which runs on sugar, runs on glucose. Your brain runs on glucose. So when it thinks you're not getting enough glucose, it's not getting enough glucose, it tells you eat more, eat more, eat more, eat more. The only reason your brain gets that message is if you have insulin resistance. If the carbohydrates you're eating, the sugar that you're eating is not getting into the brain cells so that your brain can send the correct signal to the rest of the body. So if you are addicted to sugar, you have a underlying metabolic issue, and that cause of that issue needs to be addressed. Either it's because of chronic stress. That's right. Stress eating is, people eat under stress, get sugar under stress, want carbs under stress, because stress causes insulin resistance. If you have a family history of diabetes, if you're having addiction to sugar and gaining weight at the same time, you definitely have a metabolic issue. If you find that when you eat sugar, you get sleepy, you have an underlying metabolic issue. And you need to call, and so addressing that is really, really important. Sugar addiction does not happen in a vacuum. There's a reason. And it's not willpower, and it's not discipline. It's your brain, and your brain's missignaling. And so it's really important to figure out why, or why the metabolic issue is happening. Everything I'm saying is true for me. It's not, it's not magic. This is real science. It is scientific. There's a scientific fact for what you're experiencing. Unfortunately, what's happened is that we've been told for too long that it's our willpower and discipline that's the problem, when in fact it's our brain that's missignaling, causing us. Our brain controls everything, including our emotions, including our cravings, including our appetite, including what happens to food when we've eaten it. And so when your brain's missignaling, everything goes haywire. And so the key is to fix the brain. And the way to fix that is by fixing the cause of why your brain's missignaling. And that means usually takes medication, at least medication initially, so that when you initially take medication, which is something that corrects blood sugars, metformin, GLP-1s are obviously the best. That's one of the reasons why they work so well. Then you work on the other things. So if it's from stress, then you work on stress reduction. If it's from, and if you want to improve your metabolic status, there are ways to do it. Meals are the first and quickest way. Start eating higher protein. Kind of dilute your carbs by eating more protein and vegetables. That's one. The other is building muscle. That takes time, but you can build muscle, and it's helpful. And it will help with your metabolic status. It helps with your metabolism. It helps with a lot. Muscle chews up sugar like nothing else in our body. However, when you have insulin resistance, muscle starts fighting against that process. And so it needs to be corrected first. So even if it's treating temporarily while your muscles have time to catch up, it's important. Stress reduction through meditation, mindfulness, some type of something that brings it down. If you're in menopause, hormone replacement, the reason is cortisol. So what happens in before menopause? Estrogen, progesterone is here, cortisol's here. Estrogen and progesterone keep cortisol from being dominant. As it starts to drop, suddenly cortisol becomes the dominant hormone in our body. And that's why when we are going through menopause, perimenopause, we get brain fog, we get cravings, we have mood swings. All of those are blood sugar related and brain blood sugar related. We get weight gain through the middle. And no matter what we do, exercise, eat right, whatever, all the things we did before stop working. Again, it's because of cortisol. So it's all about managing that. Thank you. I'll check it out ASAP. Yeah. Um, the best way to check for insulin resistance is with what's called a glucose tolerance test. And what that does is they check, your blood sugar and your free insulin, and then give you sugar to see what your body does after you've um, taken sugar about an hour later. And what that does, it will tell you. But you really, honestly, there's other things that will tell you. You don't even need blood tests sometimes. Like you said, you're craving sugar, you're insulin resistant. If you have dark rings around the bottom of your neck, you got a metabolic issue, you're insulin resistant. If you get sleepy after eating, you got probably have insulin resistance. If you have a strong family history of diabetes, there's a good chance. If you carry all your weight in your middle, your hip to waist ratio is too large, you probably have insulin resistance. And so, and if muscle work just doesn't seem to do anything, exercise, eating right, and just doesn't budge, then there's insulin resistance. It's like noting here to be able to screenshot later. Meds, possible HRT, possible stress reduction, and build muscle. And yeah, and also protein meals. Eat more protein. All of this information, if you go through my videos in YouTube, all this is there. I talk about this a lot, just because like the 5 M's of metabolic management, which I'll be doing. And actually, I'm going to be having a class in January talking about this and helping people actually go through step by step, working through it, figuring out labs that they need. But even if you don't have labs, there's ways of figuring it out and then creating a plan for yourself through to help counter all of the things that are happening. Because each individual may have it at different levels or may need different things in order to correct it. Because that's just the way we are. We're all different. And so it takes different things to correct it. So, well, I try to keep these under 30 minutes. We've gone 38 minutes. Oh my gosh. So if there's any other questions, I don't mind answering and sticking around and answering. Otherwise, I know your time is precious and I appreciate you coming. But if there are no more questions, what I'll do is end it now. But if you have questions later, you think of something later, you can write to me. I'm actually going to put the banner up on because I actually put it in there. And so help@drtumor.com. That is where you can contact me. And put in the subject, you can even say, from Dr. Tumor Talks or something, or I have a question. So that way I and my assistant know to tag that email so it doesn't get lost in the shuffle. All right. So thank you for coming. Thank you for, let me see, there's another comment. Oh, thank you. And I will see you next Tuesday at the Dr. Tumor Talk Show at 6 p.m. Eastern live. Good night.